Hey, what's going on, everyone? Zach here. First of all, I want to thank you for clicking on this video, knowing that it's a conversation and knowing that it's a podcast style video. But I had to record this little intro at the beginning to create a disclaimer. This was the very first conversational podcast that I've ever recorded, and there were some mishaps. And those mishaps, I would prefer that they didn't happen, but they do affect the overall quality of the podcast. So I'm going to go through them before we actually start this podcast. First mishap. We were operating the podcast with two cameras, and camera two died 20 minutes in. So we don't have a second angle like I initially planned for the entirety of the podcast, which is okay. And then the second issue is, for some reason, the Sony A1 will not record media, meaning video, on card number 2 inside of the camera. So, for some reason, as we were recording this podcast, card 1 got full, and the camera did not notify us that it was full. And so we were continuing to talk. We closed out the podcast and all of that stuff. Well, I got up, looked at the back of the camera, and saw an error that card 1 was full. And that was probably 15 minutes before the end of the podcast. So the podcast will end somewhat abruptly. I'll do my best to edit it to make it look okay and maybe not end on a cliffhanger, but I just wanted to give you that disclaimer before we get into the conversation itself, and also encourage any of you who are trying to start a podcast or just trying to do something creative with your time. It may not always go the way that you're planning, but that's okay because it's the journey that we're here for and not the destination. So without further ado, here is a podcast between myself and a gentleman named Ezra Guerra, who is the founder and owner of a company called Monument Creative. And I'm going to be helping him with some brand strategy stuff and talking with him about life and just all of it. So here we go. Hey, what's up, everyone? Zach here. We are back with another episode of Creative Business, which is a podcast where we discuss entrepreneurship, creativity, business, and how all of those things fit together. And today I'm joined by Ezra Guerra, who is the founder and owner of Monument Creative Co., which is a visual arts and design studio located in the San Antonio, Texas area. And in today's podcast, we are just going to be discussing some of the strategy behind Ezra's new brand and help him get additional clarity for where he wants to go. So,
heck yeah.
Ezra, tell the people about yourself.
Hi. So I hate that I'm going to say I'm a lot today, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to get better at it. Thank you, first of all, Zach. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm very honored to be here. This is going to be a really exciting episode, I think. I have a lot of experience with not knowing what direction I want to head. So this is really, I think this is going to be really fun and help me get a better idea of where I want to go. So yeah, like Zach said, my name is Ezra. I am a photographer and designer here in San Antonio, Texas. I love traveling. I recently went full-time with my business, and I've been trying to really get a better understanding of the market that I'm trying to head in. And if there's anything, this actually might even help our conversation today. If there's anything that I know, it's that I love helping people, and I love telling stories, and I love really connecting with people on an authentic human level. And that's a big thing to me. I also love music. I am a musician as well, part-time, and I love travel so much. Washington State is the home of my heart. I have not lived there, but I want to live there one day. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
We've been there once. Well, I've been there once.
Well, I've been there a few times. We got to go once together, and that was probably my favorite trip. It was pretty wonderful.
That was fun. So Ezra and I have a really long history together. We both kind of started photography and video at the same time. And literally what our day used to look like is, hey, we'd wake up, we'd do like our random assorted tasks, whatever our jobs were, and then we'd text each other and be like, hey, let's go and let's go to San Antonio downtown and
Good
just
times, man.
shoot some random photos. And ultimately, that's how we got good at photography.
I think so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think like all of us, we were watching like you published a reel the other day talking about like, hey, this is we were always looking up to like Garrett King, Short Stash, Sam Calder, Peter McKinnon. We were looking at all these like awesome people who were doing like this really great stuff. And now looking back, I feel like they had a lot more clarity than we gave them credit for. Because like they actually were doing the thing that we sought out to do, and no matter how much we worked, we didn't attain the same result that they were already living,
Yeah, 100%.
which is so weird.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like that didn't end up being our future, and that's okay.
Right.
But now we're trying to figure out what that actually looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's they especially I want to give honor to Garrett King and Sam Coulter for sure, but I think Peter McKinnon pioneered a lot of the social presence for photographers. I think photographers were always looked at as kind of like I think photographers were always kind of looked at as like the IT people of the creative arts or visual arts industry, I think, and it was always just kind of like a little bit of a whenever you thought of a photographer, you thought of someone who had gone to school for like, 10 years or whatever, and they were just wildly experienced and all they thought of was like numbers and shutter speed and aperture and what's all this weird stuff. And I just want photos of my family and I'm going to pay a weird amount to do it. And I think Peter McKinnon really pioneered this idea of like, anyone can be a photographer, especially now in a day and age where, there's iPhones with really good cameras on them. And you don't have to be this hoity-toity, like wildly. This doesn't sound funny, but wildly like antisocial person to be a photographer. Like you can really love people and really enjoy like capturing the human experience in a lot of different forms. And I think that's something that whether or not we ended up in following his footsteps, like as someone that we admired, I think we definitely realized, oh, we don't need to just be taking photos of. At the time, we I think we met at church, and we realized, oh, we don't need to just be limited to this small idea of like we just take photos once a week, but we can actually incorporate this into various parts of our lives and actually make this kind of a flagship element of our lives, if I could say that.
Yeah, and you're totally right. Like going back to what those guys showed us, you are completely right. Like photography used to be this thing, especially I remember in high school, like you join like the video program or whatever, and you make like the daily announcement videos and all that stuff. But you're right. Like videography and photography were really like stripped down to the geekiness of it.
Yeah, that's a good word.
like that's why there's a stereotype that you were a geek if you did this stuff.
Yeah.
Because all they cared about was like, okay, make sure your shutter speed is 100% correct. This is how you expose an image. This is like, oh, it shoots in 4K, 23.976 frames per second, and like all this stuff, like all the geeky details. And man, I see it all around us. There are people who know all of the technicalities behind their cameras, but their work is so easy to replicate. Like they go in and they shoot. They have their $7,000 camera, and then they are shooting JPEGs for their clients, and that's what they're delivering. And their clients are okay with it, and they're okay with being like, yeah, like I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
And like I don't have a full opinion about what makes a photographer. Like
I feel like that's an episode. Like we could talk about that for a while.
yeah, I feel like if I give my incomplete thought, I'll get roasted. And so, but I look at all around us, the technical understanding for your equipment doesn't necessarily help you
100%.
to create excellent creative results.
100%.
In fact, I would argue that a lot of the people that I know that don't even know how to freaking use their cameras, that don't even know how to expose an image, those are the people that are actually producing awesome work, and they have no idea how they're doing it other than that's how they always do it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just hilarious because create like photography and videography and really the media arts have like a whole nother level of creativity apart from all the geekiness and like the numbers of it.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
and I think that's how we were looking up to these people. Like we were just two kids in a small town who were like, "Oh wait, we can go and buy entry level cameras and we can make this same kind of stuff that these guys are as long as we like work hard at it."
Yeah.
And we don't have to like go to these prestigious like schools or art schools or anything to produce this work.
Yeah.
Because like you look around and the majority of people, they're not producing like bespoke work.
Yeah.
You can easily replicate the things that they're doing in probably like 15 minutes if a client gave you the time.
100%.
But anyways, we're kind of going down a creative rabbit hole.
We really are.
Let's narrow this. Let's rein this back in. So you and I have been talking for a couple months about brand strategy, and you've been curious about how that could potentially help your business and give you clarity moving forward. And so I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and it's completely fine if you don't have all the answers. I think anytime you're thinking of strategy, like for your brand, I think it's more important to know the questions you should be asking yourself more so than you should have all the answers. Because what I found going through brand strategy with clients is that the main value that I have is showing people what they don't know. And that really gets their minds moving to be thinking in the right frame of mind to actually take their business forward.
100%.
And so I'd like to ask you a couple different questions. I don't know how much of it we'll get through. Probably until the camera dies or until your next meeting. I know you have other things to do tonight. So I'll just go off with it.
Let's go.
So one of the very first things that I like to move through with my clients is something called brand foundation. So in brand foundation, I ask you 3 separate questions. And these meetings where we determine a brand's foundation typically last 3.5 to 4 hours.
That's awesome.
Answering these 3 questions. And those 3 questions are, what are your purpose, your mission, and your vision? So your purpose, that's why you exist and why anyone should really give a shit. Like, why do you exist beyond money? And why should anybody care? Your vision is your desired future state. So like if you're freaking, like you and I were just talking earlier, like we're freaking depressed sometimes. And I feel like as a creative, that's a totally normal thing to feel, because a lot of times our brain wants to go everywhere. And when we can't go everywhere, or if we're doing one thing for too long, it gets mundane. We're freaking low spirited. We're just like low energy. We don't want to do anything because we can't like fully express our creativity.
Yeah.
Well, a vision is like a North Star, so that anytime we're feeling that way, we can be like, okay, well, what am I doing today that's going to help me with this desired end result that I want?
That's good.
So that's why it's important to know your vision and your mission. I feel like this is 90% of the time done incorrectly. Like anytime you see a mission statement on like somebody's website or printed on the wall of a warehouse, it's just like some words put together that like don't even represent the brand or its people.
Laugh, love.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've seen that freaking mission statement everywhere. A mission is just a tactical plan for how you're going to live your purpose and reach your vision. So it's the combination of your purpose and your vision. And the reason why all of these things are important aren't just for us, but for our customers. Because if you notice, like all of the most popular brands in the world, they are not selling features.
Right.
Like Apple just released their Vision Pro. Nobody knows the specs. Nobody knows what apps are going to be available on it. Like nobody even knows fully how this thing works. Apple has only marketed this thing visually. And that really shows that people do not buy from a company like Apple because of what they do, but rather why they do it. And so understanding your brand foundation really outlines the why behind why you do what you do instead of just the what.
That's good.
Because people aren't going to buy why, like what you're doing. They're going to buy why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's really well said.
And so that's why it's important to figure all that stuff out. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of Monument Creative?
I think, as you were talking about it, and I was thinking about what I wanted my response to be, I kind of see it a little bit in. I have two answers to your question.
Okay.
So, answer number one is going to be, you know what's funny? Like you were talking about a little bit earlier, you were talking about like the left and right side of the brain, and I think these answers are kind of reflective of the left and right side of my brain. Remind me again, right side is creative, yeah.
So what we were talking about earlier, I said I fully believe that in a business or organization, the right side of your brain is your brand. It's your creativity.
Yeah.
That's the side of the organization that worries about all of the qualitative results. This is where we worry about how customers feel.
Yeah.
And then on the left side of the brain, that's your business, that's your numbers acumen.
Right.
That's where you worry about, like, okay, you guys worry about how they feel. I'll worry about whether or not they're spending money.
Yeah.
So there's a very emotional side to a business, and then
Yeah.
there's a very like numbers driven side.
Yeah.
And I believe that both are 100% necessary
Yeah.
for any business or organization to move forward. You can't just have all numbers, and you can't just have all like qualitative information. You have to
100%.
You have to combine those.
100%. Which I think if I had to define, or not define, excuse me, that's a bad word to use. I think if I had to, what's it called when you, what is it called when you, okay, that's what it is, sorry. I think if I had to diagnose Monument Creative right now, I would say I'm living in a lot of the right side, the creativity, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I'm having trouble. And I think this is really, and I'm sure you could speak to this in a lot of different ways, of how this can be the downfall of a lot of what could be great businesses, is they're not embracing the left side, the logical side, or not even necessarily logical, but the analytical, I think is what I would say. So kind of going back a little bit, rewinding a little bit to what I was saying, my two answers to your question are, there is something, I think I had this natural desire to want to connect with people, and I had this natural desire to make people feel seen. And I think that's something that's been very important to me for a very, very long time, without me even necessarily trying. I'm not big on small talk. If we bump into each other, I want to know, like, hey, did you sleep okay? Like, are there bad dreams that kept you up at night? Like, I don't know what it is. I just kind of naturally, like, I think it's, you know what it is? I think it's because I am such a, I overthink everything, and I am just constantly in my head. So when someone asks me about the weather, I'm like, I don't want to talk about the weather. Like, I've got bigger things that I'm thinking about. So like, I know you got, and not that the weather is a small thing, but like, I've got more like, I guess I would say,
I have bigger shit to worry about.
yeah, yeah. Like, I've got dark shit that I'm thinking about. Like, and I know you do too. And so I want to talk about that. I don't necessarily want to talk about like who's going to go to the Super Bowl, although I think the 49ers are going. And so that's a really, really big thing to me. And I think when I first picked up a camera, I remember exactly where I was. I was 10 years old. I was in Arizona. I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I went to this little Walmart and bought this tiny little Fujifilm. I still have it. It's a blue Fujifilm, like literally 10 megapixel camera. I don't know why I wanted it. I just wanted it so badly. I think it's because it was blue and I loved blue. It was $30 and I bought it, and I was just taking pictures of everything, and I was horrible, obviously, because I was 10. And I just knew that I needed to capture things and I needed to freeze moments. I also have a very spotty memory for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. There are things that I remember that are just completely random. What?
You have a spotty memory. You don't like small talk. You're hyper creative, very emotional, not very quantitative. You have shifting moods.
Yeah.
You have ADHD.
No, yeah, this is true. This is
Okay.
very true. My therapist agrees with you.
I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I can read. And that's what the internet says he has. I have it too, by the way, which is why I've read about it. But anyways,
No, and I think we could do an episode on that. That I think people need to embrace that side of themselves. I think we have made we have done a really shitty job at taking care of mental health, specifically in the creative world.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that some other time. It became really important to me to freeze moments because I can attach feelings to things, and so I knew that if I took a photo, I could attach a feeling to how I remember how I felt when I took a photo.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a very long way of saying that photography and design, especially recently, design became a really that camera just died now, which is awesome.
Okay.
You just have the one.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
Fuck it. Photography and design became really quickly this way.
This is a new podcast. Like our number 2 camera just died.
It just died. Yeah, thank God for our number 1 camera.
Yeah.
Photography and design really quickly became a way for me to communicate my feelings with the world and connect with the world on a very emotional level. Because I think when you look at a photo, you're not thinking like for some people we were talking just a couple minutes ago about like the educational side of photography and design, or specifically photography, but like you can look at a photo and analyze it for all of everything that makes up what it is, or you can look at a photo and be impacted by it. And I loved that part. I loved the impacted part. So I would say that a big purpose behind Monument photography. Wow, that's throwback. I used to call myself that like 6 years ago. A big purpose behind Monument Creative is to connect with people, make people feel seen, empower people. And I love travel and I love going places and meeting people from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And whether I was taking photos of them or I was branding their business, I wanted them to feel seen and I wanted them to feel supported. And that's a huge thing for me in Monument. Now, the analytical side, it is expensive as hell to be alive these days. And I have a dream life that I want to live with my now girlfriend, hopefully future wife. I want my kids to not have to worry about, paying for things.
Basic stuff.
Basic needs. Yeah, I want to live in a safe neighborhood. I want to have a nice house that I'm proud of. Like, I want to have not necessarily a studio, like a separate building, but like I want to have an office in my house or my apartment that like I'm proud of and that has the gear that I'm proud of, like what we're in right now.
I want an office like Peter McKinnon above a coffee shop.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. Like that's so like that's the dream. And I don't want. This sounds kind of funny. I don't want a desk job. I don't want to climb the corporate ladder. I don't want to worry about NESTech and all of that stuff. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't want my life to be run by.
What's your customer satisfaction score and all that stuff?
I just don't want that. And so that's kind of my 2 answers to your question. What's the purpose? I love pursuing people and I love seeing people, but also I need to make money because I need to survive. Like I need to.
So purpose is why you exist. Why you exist beyond money. So you can leave the money part out. So
cool.
That's talked about later in strategy.
Yeah,
it's not left out, I promise. But you left something out though. You talked about freezing a moment in time. Why do you want to do that?
I want to freeze a moment in time because that's a great question. I have a weird relationship with grief,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a weird relationship with loss. Um, During COVID, my family, we lost a lot of, we lost a couple of family members, and my parents specifically lost a couple of really close friends. And that idea, my grandma died last year. Um, I have nieces, baby nieces and nephews now. I'm saying all this to say, like, there is something I think so powerful about embracing a moment of where you're at in life and embracing every little thing that makes up, as much as you can, embracing every little thing that makes up what life looks like right now. And I think, I mean, visual arts has been around since the Stone Ages. Like the cavemen were
Drawing
they
on
were
cave.
drawing on walls
Yep.
because they wanted people to remember. They wanted to tell stories that lived beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at photos of my baby nephew and my baby niece right now, and I remember, oh, like this was the first time that my niece, like we were watching her favorite little show, like her favorite show together, and this was the first time that she like snuggled up into me, and it was like a moment that I have that picture,
Yeah.
and I can remember it. Now on the business side of like what I do, at every single session that I do with couples and with families, if it's a couple, I stand back a couple feet and I tell the husband or I tell the wife or I tell either partner to whisper something in their partner's ear on the other side of my lens. So my lens is here, there's their partner, and then here's them, and they're just kind of like up against their
Between.
but yeah. And I tell them to whisper something that whatever you want, just tell them that you love them, whatever it is. And every single time that I do that, there is like core memory that happens between those two, and I'm able to take it, and like I don't take it and like look at the picture later and like I'm not editing it later like that was cool, but I'm editing it like I don't know what was said between those two, but I know that it was probably something that they needed to hear. It was probably something that the other person needed to hear, and probably something the other person needed to say. And I think again, kind of touching a little bit on what we were talking about as far as like photography being um, so like it was such a geeky thing. I think we are just recently discovering, society is just recently discovering how intimate and healing photography can be. And I don't think we're talking about that enough. I think when you go into a photo shoot, especially guys, I think heterosexual males going into a photo shoot, they're thinking, I'm just doing this for my girl. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And so when you take a moment and you say, hey, you're actually gonna like I want you to just be a person with your person. And I don't want none of this Sears catalog you posing thing. Like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Um it does something. And I think it builds relationship. And I think it builds humanity in people. And at the end of the day, when you're 40 or 50 or 80 and you're looking back at these photos, you can remember like I remember at least fragments of that. And so that's why I want to freeze those moments is because I think those moments are what make us better people.
And you said that there's like some of the motivation behind wanting to freeze those moments I'm hearing is like trauma, because the people that you're like a couple, if they're whispering in each other's ear, like you and I have both lost people, and I feel like you and I share the perspective that like we need to appreciate everything that we have around us,
Yeah.
because it can be taken
In a moment.
at any time.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing that there's some of that too behind your motivation to capture those moments. Is like it's freaking dark, but hey, in 20 years when one of you is on your deathbed, hopefully not,
Yeah.
but like you're going to look back on all of these memories and all
Yeah.
these moments, especially when you don't have each other tangibly anymore. Like you're going to look at all these moments and you're going to be able to remember all of these good times that you
Hmm.
like literally captured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, there's a when I was a kid, I was living at my parents' house. There was this person that lived near us, and unfortunately, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was during COVID. I don't remember I hate to say it, I don't remember the conditions, but unfortunately, she lost her husband, and she still to this day will post photos of him, just like, and it, like, she'll just remember. And I think that's something that became very important to me. Exactly like you're saying, like at any moment something can change. Hell, I had a really close family. I was really close to my family growing up, but I was lonely as hell when I was a kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
I um, have walked through, and I'm very vocal about this on all on my account on Instagram. But I'm a very big mental health advocate because I walked through a lot of anxiety and depression, and I think even for seniors who are, for some of them, they're leaving the most, they're in the most fragile and formative years of their life, and they're leaving. It could have been good high school years, it could have been horrible, and they're about to enter a world that they have known nothing about. They know nothing about it, and you don't know how much you can impact someone and give them that extra boost of like, hey, you can do this, that they might need. And I think that's something that's really important to me, is like appreciating what we have now, but also letting people know um, there's more life to live. It's a huge thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy, be grateful for, you want people to be grateful for the circumstances that they have today, be ambitious about the future, but also have the perspective we could lose this at any time, so you
Yeah,
better appreciate it while you're here.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of actually, funnily enough, that we're talking about this. That's why it's called monument. I have the word literally tattooed on my side, and it's traced back to, in biblical times, there was, for the Israelites, they would erect monuments or altars to their God, and it would remind the future generations of what happened there in that place. And I knew that that was a very big thing to me. I'm also a spiritual person and a religious person, and my relationship to faith is very important to me as well. And I knew that I wanted something. I knew that that word monument was going to be really important to me because it would remind not just me, but remind people around me to look at the monuments in their lives and remember how far they've come, and remember the good and powerful things that have happened to them that have made them who they are today.
So you don't create photographs, you create monuments.
I'd like to think so. I hope so. One of the best compliments I can get. This is actually someone reached out to me via email. They were wanting to book a session, and they used the word cinematic, and that was like the best compliment I could get. I was like, heck yeah! They were like, your photos are so cinematic, and I was like, yes, we made it. And that's what I want to be known for. Is I'm not like, I don't like the Sears, again. No harping on Sears, but like they're like talking about like their photos, like it's very posed, and there's the props and stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, man, I want people to be captured and immortalized, and just really pivotal moments and things that I want them to remember, and seasons of their lives. It's really sweet too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I totally understand that compliment. One of my friends, Angelo, he's affiliated with Montequema Firearms,
Nice.
and one day we were sitting at lunch. He's like, like all of your stuff is a freaking movie. Like, even if it's a photo, he's like, these are freaking cinematic movies. And I was like, I appreciate that.
You shed that one tear.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go cry in the bathroom. I appreciate that. But anyways, so not to kill the mood, but
No, it's great. I love it.
uh,
It's like a weird creative part of you is turned on a little bit.
yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna freaking go to the bathroom.
You're a little aroused.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But does thinking about all of that, does it push you further to being able to articulate why you exist?
I think so. I want to get better at articulating it. And I know you're going to help me with this, but I want to get better at articulating it and not taking 20 minutes to describe it like I just did. You know what I mean?
But this is what's necessary to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, there's so many people that start their businesses. It doesn't matter what like niche they're in. They can't define why they exist.
Yeah.
For them, it's like, even if there was this huge emotional motivation behind doing what they're doing, like, they assume that everyone else knows that.
Yeah.
And they assume that they do a good job at articulating it.
Yeah.
But
or it's common sense or something.
Yeah, but it's very rarely that, especially if you have a competitor that's doing your same thing.
Yeah.
Everything you just told me is what makes you different.
Yeah.
So why do we not know this
Right.
about ourselves, and how come we can't articulate it?
Right.
That's why it's like so important to be able to do.
Yeah. It's well said.
If so, like, here's some homework. Like, remember everything that you just told me, and later on today, write it all down, like literally in bullet points, if you can remember everything.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to watch this too.
Yeah,
but yeah, we have this too. I forgot about the camera.
I forgot the camera's here.
Yeah, we're just so natural.
Yeah.
We just forgot the camera.
Life is a podcast. What can we say?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you can write down all these bullet points, and then if you want to figure out, hey, how does all this put together? Freaking Madison's a copywriter.
Mm-hmm.
And if Madison doesn't work out, go to ChatGPT.
Oh, gosh.
I'm serious.
ChatGPT's dope.
Dude, just freaking copy and paste those bullet points into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And say, hey, ChatGPT, if my purpose is the reason why I exist and why anyone should care, please take all of these bullet points and help me to properly articulate that.
Nice.
And if you do that, it will literally put it all together, and it will draw from the experience of everyone who has ever been alive and had their work published on the internet.
Yeah.
And it will give you options. And if you don't like it, literally type "try again," and it will.
Pretty awesome.
And it will try again.
Yeah.
You know, and that takes so much of the friction out of being able to articulate this stuff.
100%.
And this is a plug. If you're not utilizing AI in your business,
don't be scared of it.
Yeah, don't be scared of it. In the next freaking 5 to 10 years, the people who use AI are gonna freaking. It's like a wealth imbalance, and everyone who hops on right now is going to be at the top, and everyone who doesn't is going to be at the bottom, and they're going to be trying to figure out why.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
And if you get 5 of your friends to recommend ChatGPT to 5 of their friends,
use my affiliate code.
It's like it was basically a free thing, and we're trying to sell it. That's awesome.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, you can't.
Is it ChatGPT Pro? Is that what it is? That's free?
Yeah, I pay like $20.
Or no, that's charged. Yeah, but that's like, I need to upgrade to that.
So GPT 3.5 is free. GPT 4 is $20 a month.
That's right.
And it's like so much more intelligent. GPT 4.
Is that the one that like makes photos for you?
So DALL-E can produce photos, but it's not at the point where
it's good.
Usable.
The AI conversation I think is a big one too. I would say yes to everything he just said, but be honest with your clientele. I will say, I think when you're honest about, and this is a good conversation. Yeah, go. I like it.
So obviously, yes, be honest. And what I advise a lot of clients to do is do not be hard on yourself about defining your purpose right now. Like right now, just take your notes, maybe form a rough draft. And this goes the same for your vision statement and your mission statement.
because later on during brand strategy, we figure out what your brand voice is. And once you know what your brand voice is, you have to filter all of the stuff that you write down in terms of copy through your brand voice so that it sounds consistent with your brand.
Yeah.
So like, don't be too hard on yourself during stage one.
Yeah, 100%.
Because all of it's going to change.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know if that's where you were saying in terms of being honest. Like,
no, that's a very fair point. I think and again, this is we should actually talk about AI in an episode. I think that'd be fun, specifically in the creative world. But I think there are a lot of people, there are a lot of businesses and brands that I think are taking advantage of clients by saying, "Oh yeah, it's gonna take me X amount of hours of work," and then in reality, it takes them like 2 hours because they're using AI and they're not being honest, I think, with their client about. They're making it sound like they're doing all the work when in reality it's a computer that's doing it for them. And I think that's a very it's a conversation. I don't think it's just one main statement, but I think if you can be honest about like I don't know, I think it's more of a conversation. We can edit that part out.
yeah, no, we can keep it in. But I want to talk about that because I feel like I disagree with you about some of it. Yeah. But anyways, but do you feel like you have a proper amount of information to write down about your purpose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It's very raw.
Yeah.
And it's very like I want to find a way. I think it could be very morbid, and I don't want it to be morbid, so I want to find a way to make it more like empowering than deflating, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like, hey, hire me so that when your loved ones die, you can remember.
You have photos at the funeral.
Yeah, you have photos of them. Like, obviously, you don't want to say that. Like, yeah, but yeah, I see what
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
yeah, and it even makes the social media conversation so weird because then it's like I was having this conversation with my girlfriend this morning, and we were talking about like I hate. It's great for a lot of reasons, but I really do hate the internet. Like I think it's so dehumanizing in a lot of different ways, and I think everyone's trying to sell something, and I think everyone's just trying to, everyone's trying to make a living, and I think
how dare they?
I know, right? It's crazy. Like I'm over here talking about my dreams, and I'm like, no, your dreams aren't real, mine aren't. That's horrible. That's not at all what I mean. But I think it's like, I'm sorry. Do you have somewhere else you want to be?
No.
I'm totally kidding. You're fine. You're fine.
I got 68 notifications that
oh god,
that always happen when I'm in do not disturb mode.
And the second it's off do not disturb, no one's trying to contact you. Oh yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, when I'm not freaking recording the future, no one cares.
Guys, we're trying to build monuments here. What are you talking about?
Anyways, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I understand how rude that looks.
No, I don't care. You're good.
And I hate that. I hate that my notifications are on my watch because even in meetings, I'm like, like I could be like 5 minutes in and I'm just like.
That's why I think the Vision Pro is going to be so dope. Because I could be looking at you and you don't know that I'm actually seeing a bunch of different notifications. And then we can in the Vision Pro you can use your hand to like swipe through it. Like I could be pretending like I'm talking to you, like, yeah, man, that totally that 100% makes sense. And in reality I'm just scrolling through TikTok.
You just have a headset on at the same time.
Yeah.
Are you talking about a remote meeting? Or are you talking about
I think
are you talking about sitting across?
Let's be honest. In 200 years, if we're still alive, if the Earth hasn't melted by then, that's where we're heading. Is everyone's going to be wearing Vision Pros, walking around, and Ready Player One-ing the world.
Yeah. Anyways, what were you talking about?
I was just saying on social media, I think it's you got to take. At least I think this is going to be very helpful. I think in social media, you got to take really deep and intentional things and make them digestible for people and little bite-sized. And I'm in a very weird era of my life right now where I'm just like really that's really aggravating me because I just want to get to the meat and potatoes. I don't want little garnishes over and over. Like I want the real stuff. But I completely understand that is just my experience. And excuse me, that's not going to be popular for everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, I feel like we all go through the things that we go through. Like some of us got to experience intense trauma when we were young.
Right. We got to.
That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
Like I was either going to deal with that trauma at the end of my life or at the beginning. I'd rather get that shit out of the way at the beginning. But I feel like when I was 14, 15 years old, I would always repeat to myself, like, oh, that which doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Like, I learned that. And at a certain point, that was like insightful information for me. And now when I see that, I'm like, that's so cliche.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's called a platitude. Like, when something is like overused so much to us, it becomes a platitude.
Huh.
And something, I was talking to my girlfriend about this.
Okay.
And I was like, there's so many things that could help people that we don't talk about anymore because we feel like it's not relevant to them. When they could be at a life stage where something that we've learned so much that it's mundane is actually
100%.
is actually helpful to those people.
100%.
Is that where you were going with it, or were you going somewhere else?
I think you're 100% right. And I think that also lends itself to brand strategy, I think, or at least brand identity.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm very curious to see how everything that I just said about my purpose, how I can make that still authentic on a database or on the internet where a lot of it feels inauthentic. I think TikTok is helping things be a little bit more authentic again. I think we're getting back to embracing, like, well, you were even just saying, like, sometimes, like, a lot of podcasts these days, they're just sitting in the living room. Like, we're getting back to embracing, like, the less lights, more quality.
Mm-hmm.
Or less
reliance on quality.
Yes. And more
on meat, like more on authenticness.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
Like looking back, editing styles, everything's like flashy and fast paced and everything.
Teal and orange.
Yeah, everything's a sizzle reel. Like now, I feel like things are moving more towards, like, if you produce a YouTube video, and I've experimented with this on the videos you were helping me with thumbnails for.
Mm-hmm.
The videos where I leave my pauses in perform better than the videos where I cut everything out.
Really?
So I could have a 10-minute video that could be an 8-minute video, and the 10-minute video will perform better because people are tired of that, like, fast-paced
Yeah, dude.
stuff.
100%.
Unless it's a tutorial video. If it's a
Right.
tutorial video, get to the freaking point.
I don't want, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways.
No, I think I mean, there are so many little mini episodes in this episode, I feel like.
Yeah, there are.
But that's another one, is like, I was telling you a little bit earlier, like, I'm on TikTok or I'm on Instagram Reels and I'm swiping and I'm like, it's like, hey, what's up? Oh my God, this is how I did. And then it's like, I'm thinking about making content. I'm like, ugh, like, I don't want to be that guy who's like, here's why you should buy my product and like all this. Because I'm just like, no, like, that's so, at the end of the day, yes, please help me keep my lights on. Please help me take my girlfriend to Disney World. Like,
yeah.
But I don't need 5 million followers. I don't even need a massive social following. If I can be booking shoots or booking designs that fund my life, wonderful, fantastic. But I'm so much more concerned about, like, making content that I'm actually passionate about than I am about feeding the algorithm.
Yeah.
Fuck the algorithm, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's really where I'm at in my life. And who's the owner of Instagram? What's his name?
Adam Asari.
Yeah.
I mean, technically it's Mark Zuckerberg.
Technically.
But Adam Asari is the CEO of Instagram.
Yeah, so Adam, if you see this, I'm sorry for saying that. But I think we are in such an algorithm-based world, and I'm sick of it. And I just really want everyone to have a fair shot.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of really talented creators and talented business people that are being underperformed simply because they aren't being flashy enough. And I think that is exactly what is wrong with society. I can tell you disagree.
I don't completely disagree, but I've been grappling with these ideas for months.
Okay.
Like, because I'm coming to the conclusion that audience retention has a lot to do with what we're doing in the actual videos to maintain that audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with my brand strategy videos are 100% geared towards business owners. So the majority of people are not going to resonate with the things that I have to say. Whereas like when I talk about like that video I did the other day where I was just talking about like use bare bones gear, go out and make something, don't worry about what gear you have. That performed better than my brand strategy videos because it resonated with a lot more people. Even though brand strategy is my niche and that's what I like ideally want to be known for, that's not the content that spreads like my other content does. Which means what you were talking about a few minutes ago, I have to get good at taking these complex ideas and making them digestible to the everyday person. Because the everyday person, they still think a brand is a logo.
That's well said.
And
that makes sense.
And it's not.
That makes sense.
And so how do I make my content more digestible so that it appeals to more people that actually match the demographic of people that I want to go after? You know, because there are people. I was looking at a case study. Some guy that I follow on Threads, he posted his yearly results last year. He started the year with 5,000 followers, and at the end of 2023, he had 210,000 followers from posting every single day, reels every single day. Well, not just reels, but reels and photos every single day, no exception. We're posting every single day, and his analytics showed that his latest reel reached like 10 million people.
Jesus.
And I feel like, on one hand, I remember the engagement that we used to get 6 years ago. We would post a photo, we'd get between 100 to 300 to sometimes 600 or 1,000 likes.
I remember. Good times.
And now it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And my first impulse is to blame Instagram. But then I look around and I'm like, we don't see them in our personal community, but so many people have gotten good at photography to the point where competition is more fierce than it was for us 6 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years ago, people didn't even know what editing was. They didn't know you could bring down the shadows and change your freaking teal or change your blues to teal. And they didn't know that. So you could post a photo that looked distinctly different.
Presets were called filters.
Yeah. But like you could post a photo that was so different than someone else's because they didn't even know they could achieve that result.
Yeah.
And then the people that could achieve that result stood out. And so it was easy to get engagement because it wasn't something they always saw. Now, if you go through your Explore page, like how many badass people do you see producing work?
Right.
Like it's so much.
So much.
So much that it looks like, okay, who's different here? All of you are at such a high level, but you're still all the same, so no one stands out. So it's like, what can I do to stand out? So on one side, I feel like it's Instagram's fault. And then on the other side, I feel like it's my fault because I'm like, I'm not doing enough to evolve based on what is reality. Like there's so many people that are much more skilled than they were 6 years ago, but I'm ignoring that.
Yeah.
I want the results that I had 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading, I'm on Threads a lot these days. I love Threads. But I was reading and someone posted like a really cool, it was shot of like trees in the snow and there was a bunch of leading lines based on like the distance in the middle of the trees. And it was like a really far shot and it was really well edited. And he posted a screenshot like, thanks at Adam Masari, like I got 26 likes on this really amazing photo. And someone commented and they were like, yeah, it's because it looks like a stock photo. And I was like, oh, well, if we begin to realize like, if we align at all of this high quality work with stock photography because it's all the same,
Yeah.
then yeah, users are going to think that this landscape shot is stock photography
Yeah.
if there's nothing differentiating it from someone else.
Yeah.
Which is why like creators like Garrett King stand out. Like you can try as hard as you want to edit like Garrett, you will not.
Right.
Like you may have a small gap between like your work and his work and your work, but you're not going to have his composition.
Right.
You're not going to have his lighting. You're not going to have some of his skin tones. You're not going to be able to tell stories like he does because he's got just like a fundamental understanding of what makes him different. And that's why he does well. Whereas like I feel like a lot of photographers, we don't have that. You know what I mean?
That's really well said. I think it's funny how we always find a way back to, as a society at least, we always find a way back to, like, whatever makes you special makes you stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think we're both, yeah. I think we are at least there in the internet. And you're 100% right. I think, like, I don't want to whine about Instagram anymore. I think I really want to enjoy creating content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I feel this pressure to create content that performs well. And if it doesn't perform well, it literally keeps me up at night. And that's why I do blame Instagram sometimes. But I love what you said about like that guy on like what you said that thread about the stock photo like is very like dang like yeah like that's where we're at is again this is the latest iPhone and it takes a really freaking good photo.
Yep.
And I can't be mad that we're there because I use it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it just means I got to work a little bit harder to lean into conversations like this, find my purpose, find the thing that helps me stand out. Now, and this might be a longer conversation, but I think the thing that I want to really avoid is I have a very interesting relationship with the idea of monetizing talents. And you and I have talked about this, like, and you had a really good response from me a couple of weeks ago. But you good?
Yeah, I'm just making sure this is freaking recording still.
Can you imagine? Oh God, that's a good conversation either way. But I have a really weird relationship with the idea of monetizing talents and skills because I think it's just very easy to base your worth off of whether or not you get, clients, which you need to protect yourself. Like you need to protect your heart against those kinds of things. But also not letting yourself be, but also really pushing yourself to push the envelope of what you know and stand out, not to garner affection or even following, but so that I actually don't know. It's a very interesting conversation.
I think the solution is counterintuitive. Because if we are creating the things that we're creating based off of quantitative results, we're going to end up making something that we are not actually passionate about,
Yeah.
which will actually make it perform worse. Whereas if we pay attention to the artistic side of it, making the things that we actually want to create, we end up making those things a lot better, and those things have better quantitative result.
Right.
But like it's counterintuitive. To get quantitative results, you have to ignore them.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving on. So we talked about vision, which is a desired future state of where you'd like to be. Now, this is, again, beyond money. Like, I don't want you to tell me, oh, I want to make $300,000 a year.
Right.
Because this is beyond money. What comes to mind when you think about a North Star that you want to establish for yourself?
I want Monument to be a resource. I want Monument, and I hope this doesn't sound pick me in any way, and I apologize if it does. But I want Monument, what Garrett King and Peter McKinnon and Sam Coulter were for us. I want Monument to be that for 18, 25-year-old creatives in small towns in the middle of nowhere that don't know if, like, I don't want it to be a flex. I don't want Monument to be a flex, but I want it to be a place that, okay, one of my biggest inspirations right now, two of my biggest inspirations right now, I guess I should say, are Amy and Jen Hood from Hoodspa Design. They are absolutely amazing. They're incredible. They're so fun to watch. They have these amazing live streams where you can watch them literally like create brand identities there while you're watching them. And it's awesome. And I love it. And it, on my worst days where I want to give up on the thing that I'm passionate about and I want to just go work at McDonald's and just flip burgers and see if that, takes care of my livelihood, those videos from those content creators inspire me to try something and to keep going. And that's what I want Monument to be. And so the North Star for me is Monument is a website. It is a social media account that is resourcing creatives of all kinds and inspiring them, and also acting as a little bit of like an education, not just on photography and design, but even on travel and things like that. There are also a couple of other smaller businesses that I would one day love to start, and I could see them being extensions of Monument. Not because they don't fit the Monument brand, but because they actually do fit the brand, but they stand on their own. Does that make sense? Is that an answer to your question?
Sort of. So give me an example of, or maybe you haven't done this yet, but give me an example of an action that you took for your business based on that desired result.
I started sharing reels based off of topics that I thought that I either thought or people told me they wanted to hear talked about.
Okay.
So I started recording some reels and posted them, and they performed fairly well for my audience, the amount of audience that I have. And it wasn't about, I don't say that to say that the success of those videos was predicated on whether or not they performed well, but I mean, they accomplished what they needed to do. Meaning people were educated, people were seen, people felt, okay, like this is like, thanks for, like, I actually had a couple people who's a very, whenever someone says, I have, my stuff is cinematic, that's like the highest compliment. Higher than that though is someone saying, hey, you said exactly what I needed to hear. Like, thank you. Like, that's just such a huge honor. And I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be able to have a couple of conversations over the last couple of months where different kinds of creatives have asked me, like, hey, like, what's your thoughts on this? What, like, how, like starting my own business or something like that, and me being able to speak into it, not because I'm the leading voice on any of this stuff, but because like I like talking about the things that I'm learning.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I can see like these are the things that like highlight your why. Like if someone is going to hire like a photographer to photograph their family, they're not going to remember the person who's posting a photo every single day of families. They're going to remember like, oh, this guy that I follow on Instagram, he said something I really needed to hear the other day, and he just happens to do family portraits. Like, I feel like our actual products and services that we offer, they need to be that to our customers and clients. We just happen to do these things, but that's not why you're hiring us. Like, we just happen to do that thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with Apple, like they make things for people who think different. They just happen to make great computers. You know, they don't make great computers, buy one. Like nobody wants to buy that.
Right.
Everyone's like, I want to buy this computer because you guys are innovative thinkers who make things for people who think like me.
Yeah.
That's why I want to buy it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You were asking earlier what sets people apart in a sea of oversaturated creatives. Heart, I think, is really what sets people apart.
An articulated heart.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Cool.
That's helpful for me. That actually answers a question that I needed, that I was really hoping that we'd get answered in this conversation, was like, I have these desires and these inarticulated feelings that I don't want to, like, I don't know how to make content from this place, but I do want to make content from this place because I want to be genuine. I don't want to try to sell something, but I do just want to be genuine.
Yeah.
And so that is really, really affirming that I don't need to talk about heart and then be like, oh, buy my latest package. I can just talk about heart.
Exactly.
And then people can explore who I am. And from there, my photography and my design is part of who I am.
Exactly.
That's really cool. I love that. So you're not always trying to plug yourself.
You're rarely ever trying to plug yourself.
You're just being memorable.
Yep.
And then people will go and investigate you.
Yep.
That's really cool. Be memorable and impactful. I love that. Cool.
So the step after that is figuring out, how are you going to carry that out? What actions can you put into play that help you to accomplish that goal? Like, how are you going to live your purpose and reach your vision? I'll give you an example. So, Black Rifle Coffee, they exist initially so that veterans would have a place to transition to once they got out of service.
That's awesome.
And Black Rifle Coffee believes in like conservative values. They believe in a lot of traditional values, personal responsibility, like love of country, defense and protection for yourself and those around you, different things like that. And they also support like law enforcement, veterans, obviously, people who serve their communities, people who are servant-hearted. That's who they support. So their mission is to serve coffee and culture to people who love America. And that encompasses their vision, which is to hire 10,000 veterans. And it encapsulates their purpose, which is to be a place where veterans feel welcome once they've transitioned from service. So those two things encapsulated is we serve coffee and culture to people who love America. So like that's just an example of this statement encapsulates both these things. Because if we serve coffee and culture to people who love America, we serve veterans, we serve first responders, we serve our employees who are veterans, we serve customers who support those things as well. Does that make sense? Like every step of the way, it answers that question. How do we live the purpose and reach the vision?
I love that. That's awesome. Man, that's really powerful.
And that's a question that you would have to take all of your information from everything you said with purpose and everything you said with vision, and you can take it into ChatGPT and just say, if my vision is the tactical plan for how I will live this purpose and reach this vision, articulate a response for how I can do that.
Okay.
And then it will tell you, like, here are some options just to get you thinking. Even if you
Yeah.
don't choose one, like, at least your brain can be thinking about everything that you can consider.
Okay. How do you, what you were, something that I'm also trying to process it in this year of my life. Black Rifle, it's a great example, I think. Black Rifle is doing something so expansive on such a daily level, which is really awesome. Like, they are trying to employ 10,000 veterans. That's amazing. And they're also offering a service that people need every day. People need, excuse me, people need coffee throughout their day, or they need a coffee shop to go work at.
Mm-hmm.
For something like photography or design, those things, I think until maybe about 20 years ago, those things were super, I'll use the word luxury. I think having quality photos printed of your family framed in your living room was the sign of luxury, of lifestyle, a high-end lifestyle. And yeah,
Now everyone can do it.
yeah. Like, and it's such a, it's funny, I have this conversation with photographers a lot, but it is such an unnecessary thing. Photography, like, unless you are a business, photography for families and stuff like that is so unnecessary. Families or for couples or anything like that, especially in an era where people have phones. At the base level, though, it is so not part of our. Well, I don't know. I feel like I've struggled with, like, man, this feels so like you're asking people to spend an amount of money. You know,
Yeah,
how's it looking?
that's good.
You're asking people to spend a certain amount of money for something that is, quite honestly, a luxury. How?
Are you, by luxury, do you mean this is a want, not a need?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So with any product or business or service, even if something is not a direct need, like food is a need, you can still establish your product in such a way that it serves a need of your customer.
Okay.
So, like, if your customer has a need to keep these established memories safe because they feel like you feel that life is precious and it can be taken at any time, that is you positioning your business to account for their need. You don't get to determine what people need. Your customers can determine that for themselves, and it's your job to know what those needs are so that you can position your product in such a way that you can actually serve those people. And by serve, I don't just mean sell. I mean, these are the people that you serve.
Yeah.
You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
It sounded like you made me think of something a second ago. Like, anyone can choose any coffee they want. In Bernie alone, you have Starbucks, you have Dunkin', you have On the Grind, you have Daily Grind, you have the Dinger. Like, is there more?
You got Daily Grind. And then also all the different different restaurants that also offer like little coffee
Yeah.
pastries.
Why in the world would someone decide to come to Black Rifle Coffee? Yet the shop here in Bernie, Texas services hundreds of people a day. Why is that? Why? And we don't even have a drive-through. They don't even have a drive-through there. So why would someone come and park their car, come inside, get coffee, leave and get back in their car and leave when there are more convenient options? So it's got nothing to do with features. It's got nothing to do with how your coffee tastes because, let's be real, you and I drink a lot of coffee and a lot of the coffee tastes the same. Like, we go to Merit Coffee because that's where people like us go. Right? People who wear black, creative people, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's quiet, it's spacious, there's lots of plugs, we can be there for hours. That's where people like us go, and that's where we go. Black Rifle has its own demographic, and I match that demographic too. That's where we go. You know what I mean? But what makes it that way? Can you see that there's clear things that make people do things that they don't really need to do?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And I think you're helping me solidify that more in my own mind because I think I rarely expect people to give a shit about something, so want and not need, without realizing that what you said was as a gut punch to me, but I needed it, that I don't get to decide what people want or need. But also there are so many wants that I have created. They have become needs for me every single day without me even realizing it. And they're like pivotal to me now. Like you said, like going to Merit, I live 4 minutes from a coffee shop. I could walk to that coffee shop if I wanted to, but it's not Merit for me. And I will drive 11 minutes. I will brave the I-10 1604 intersection right now, which is havoc. And I'll brave it because it's important to me to go to that place, that specific location. There's another one actually. I think it's even closer to me, and it's up the highway. And I refuse to go there. I want to go to this other one because that's my spot. That's really powerful. That's a good statement. I love that. Thing.
So, this is all brand foundation. These are all things that you need to figure out to form the foundational understanding of your brand. So we went through your purpose, which is why you exist and why anyone should care, your vision, which is your desired future state, and your mission, which is how you're going to live the purpose and reach the vision. So outside of that, we typically talk about goals, business goals in these meetings, but we don't have enough paper. We don't have anything to write anything on. So we're not going to talk about that, but I want to give examples of what those things can be. That way you can do that on your own to establish these metrics.
Cool.
So business goals are, now we're talking about money. Now we can say, okay, I made $30,000 this year. I want to make 60 next year. Like these are things that you need to be able to measure. Like that one. Or let's say you have a bunch of clients right now, but you realize you lose 2 clients a year. And you say, like, I want to lose less clients. So retention is at this percentage right now. It needs to be at this percentage. Or right now I have 1,000 followers on Instagram. I want to get to 10,000. Or does all this make sense though?
Yeah, 100%.
So you need to be able to plot out things that you can reasonably measure from where you are today and where you would like to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, however you want to measure it, just as long as you can constantly go back and measure your progress.
Yeah.
Because at any point, like brand strategy, a lot of people, a lot of business owners especially, they hear the word brand and they check out because they're like, this has nothing to do with money. Completely wrong. Like, brand strategy is a systematic method that you can use to reshape the perception of your customers to make them think of you like you think of you, which makes them spend more money with you. And so at any point in time, you need to be able to go back and make sure, is my all-encompassing brand strategy helping me reach my goals? Because if it's not, then obviously something's not working.
Yeah.
If you made less money next year than you did this year and you're doing all this extra stuff, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's how you know, like, okay, I have to change something, you know? But if you're not familiar, today we talked about brand strategy, and more specifically, the first phase of it, which is brand foundation. In the next podcast, we're going to be talking about brand personality, which is when we figure out what is the freaking values and beliefs of the brand, what is the culture, what are the attributes and benefits that you bring to the table as a brand, what is your look and feel, your tone of voice, and then we literally make a personality around your brand, with its own demographics. What's the name of the personality? How old are they? Where do they work? How much money do they make? Are they married? Do they have kids? What are their needs, wants, desires, fears, like all that stuff?
Trauma.
We make them an actual person.
Okay.
Because at any point in time, think about why you like people. Why do you form relationships with people? It's because there's distinct things about them that make them different from other people.
Yeah.
So your brand is no exception. You have to make your brand distinct in such a way that it literally behaves like a person.
Okay.
So that's phase 2, which is brand personality. Phase 3, we figure out who is your desired customer. What is an audience that we can reach, the smallest audience possible that we can reach, sell to, and still be profitable. I'll give you an example. Hunters. Like if we're going to sell a product to hunters all have a similar lifestyle. They have similar beliefs. They have similar wants, needs, desires, fears, all that stuff. Their hobbies are typically the same. Whether or not they have the same jobs doesn't matter. They all like to go hunting on the weekends. They like to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be in a blind by 5 a.m. And, you know, that's a hunter. They all have the same problems. And so if you solve for that minimum viable audience, you can solve a problem one time and it solves all of those people's problems because they're all part of that same minimum viable audience.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can figure out who is an ideal customer inside of that I actually want to reach.
Okay.
And then once we know all of those details, we go out and actually talk to those people. We figure out who they are. Like we interview them and ask them, what does a day in your life look like? Oh, I'm freaking stressed. I wake up early in the morning and I got to take my kid to school and I got to do all this. And that way you actually figure out like, who is my actual customer? What does a day in their life look like? And that's when you actually figure out what are their needs? What are their fears? What's at stake if they don't like serve those needs? What's at stake here, you know? And then you can position your product in such a way that it, I hate the word, but takes advantage of all those things.
Okay.
And not to mention, you can identify gaps that affect your business. Like if you want to be known as this like inspirational, empowering business that helps people save moments in time, but people don't think of you that way, you have a brand gap. And that lets you know like, okay, people don't think of me the way that I want them to. And that's a gap. This is how I want them to think of me. What do I need to do to get them there? Or an opportunity gap. Like, let's say you're sitting down with them and you're like, hey, please use my website. Like, and just watch them. Like, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for some examples of your photography. Okay, cool. And then you watch them poke around and they can't find it. And if you interview 12 different people and 9 of them say like, I can't find it, then you know, okay, there's an opportunity here in my brand touch point to make something that my customers are commonly searching for easier to find.
Okay.
That's an example of an opportunity gap.
Okay.
And then a market gap is something like, this more applies to, like, let's say you're a veteran-owned bakery. If your customers don't even know you're veteran-owned, then you don't occupy a space in the veteran-owned community.
Yeah.
Which means in that market, you occupy no space. So that's a market gap.
Okay.
So identifying brand gaps, market gaps, opportunity gaps, those are something that you can only do when you know who your customer actually is, so that you can form those insights to begin with.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
And then, in addition to interviews, you observe your customers, because people behave differently when they know you're watching versus when they don't know you're watching. So it's important to observe your customer in their natural habitat, whether that be a coffee shop or wherever, beauty salon, whoever it is that you're targeting. And that's how you gain all that insight. And then you take all that insight and you combine it with your brand's foundation, your brand's personality, and you put it all together to define a roadmap of, this is who we are as a brand, this is how we're going to behave, this is what we embody, these are the customers that we're going after. So now everything that we create is going to be consistent with the brand and resonate with our ideal customer.
Awesome. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really cool. I like the way you shape that out. That's really cool, because then it leaves little to no room for any holes to be poked in it, because it's like, oh, we have an answer to that actually.